Yeah, absolutely. All right, we are live. Okay, I just want to say to the billions of people watching, thank you so much for tuning in from the holy city spot. And today's class is your highest self, getting to know your highest self. That's a very, very important thing because every single person by nature knows their lowest self. They don't know their highest self. Because it says, Ayer para Adam Yivali, the person is born as a little wild cow. You ever saw a little wild cow? It's not enough that he's a cow, he's a wild cow. And so the person basically has desires, right? What is the body in a way? The body is like, I want it now, right? You look at a little kid, right? You have little kids, you have little grandkids.
I want it, I need it, and I
It's
get
now.
it now.
Right. If you look at little,
have it.
and if you look at little kids, what do they say? The difference between the men and the boys are the size of their toys, right? This guy wants it now, and that guy wants it now, and wanted to have a better vision.
No, I wanted
A table? Why don't you sit over here? Come sit on this side. Not meant to sit between two. Not meant to sit between two girls. Okay. So there you go. So the point is that you have the little child, right? He's like, so in a way, like, are we that different, right? The desire, I want this thing and I want it now, right? So if you're a little kid or a big kid and you want that, is it really that different? And the answer is not really, because both is driven by this kind of my little ego, and it needs to have it, and it needs to have it now, etc. So is that our highest self? And this is one of the most important points of Hasidus, and that is that we have two selves. So if you ever meet a person, including yourself, and you say, wow, that person is not such a great person. They have this fault or they have that fault, right? So you're not talking about the highest self of the person, right? Condemnation is actually the lowest of the lowest part of ourselves, right? Right? It says that there are two parts in Gan Eden. There's a heichel, there's a chamber where they can find in the greatest tzaddik a fault. Another one that they can find in the greatest rasha is chus. And so it's very deep far from the Baal Shem Tov. He says, you want to know who you are, you're good or bad? Are you seeing in others good or bad? Because when we're seeing in others good, it means that you're in a good space. But if all you're doing is seeing what's wrong in others, and even there's various groups, whether within Judaism, within out, their whole group is based on what's wrong with everybody else. That group itself is fundamentally something rotten there, because life is not about finding out what's wrong. You know, it's like, and there are even massive religions with maybe billions of people, and the whole thing. I mean, within religions, there are obviously nuances. Some people see it like this, some people see it like that. But like so much of it could be about like oh, you're bad and you're gonna go to hell, and don't do this, and if you do this, maybe you'll go to heaven. You know what I mean? In Islam, I say they say that there are 84 versions of Islam. When the Messiah will come, there'll be 84 versions of Islam, and 83 are going to go to hell. It's not good odds, right? So the point is, and this is a very, very deep point. Hashem didn't make this world so we should be stressed. That wasn't the goal of this world, right? And certain people, they look at Judaism, the goal, and even like in the secular world, like sometimes like this big thing that you should be walk around with stress. Right? No, the world is not created for us to be stressed. I remember I was on a bus once. I was going from New York to Cleveland, so it was 9 hours, and it was like by night, and it was like kind of a little bit groggy, and so this kind of big, not that it matters, big black woman gets on the bus, and she goes, "How are you?" And this is like, I don't know, 5 a.m., and I look up and I was like, "How are you?" So she goes, "I'm too blessed to be stressed." Wow. You could tell this was a person that she didn't have the easiest life. You know, Greyhound bus people are not the easiest life.
There's crazy stories. A lot of people are on drugs.
Yeah, there's got to
On
be
those
a lot of
buses.
stories, but basically, it's the cheapest way to travel. It's not the nicest way to, but it was a good line, and this was a person who overcame. I asked somebody the other day, "How are you doing?" I said, "I'm doing great. It's so bad that I have to do good," right?
Wow.
Because in life, it's a real luxury to suffer. Suffering is a tremendous luxury. If you go, I lived in Africa for many years. People in Africa, the really poor people, they are the happiest people. The people that, whether they're black or whatever, it doesn't matter. Once you get like a decent income, you're not so happy because really you could have had a nicer car, and your wife spoke to you like this, and really she shouldn't have said that, and your mother-in-law and your brother-in-law, but the people that mamish have nothing, they don't have problems because you don't have a choice. You have to get out of your problems. You have to work. Oh, shalom aleichem. Would you like to join us?
I left to, may I?
Please,
No,
please,
you
please.
can- I sit-
No, you can sit here.
There's also room here. We're very close to the stairs. Yeah, be careful. It's very close to the stairs. Be careful. I know. I understand.
I've done
I
that
know
before.
to swim.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry,
You're
sorry
welcome.
for the interruption.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. So, we're just talking about discovering our highest self. And so the idea is that when things are like really difficult, so in a way it pushes away the lowest self. Oh, my ego, my problems, because you don't even have an option. You have to, what they call is resilience. You have to deal with reality. And certainly in Israel's been termed one of the happiest countries in the world. And you say, really, from a stress level, Israel's got some stresses, right now as we're speaking. But the thing is, it's actually ironic. As a friend of mine from former Ukraine, and these guys, they really grew up with like real anti-Semitism. He remembers like people like coming from the bar and banging on their house, Jid, Jid, you know what I mean? It's like they grew up in like having to fight his way through school because he's a Jew. Like they grew up with stuff. And in fact, you'll see that most of the Jews of Russia, they're strong people, they're happy people, they're put together. Why? Because it was the pressure that beat out of them all of the pettiness, So people that have their issues are like, that there wasn't the right coffee in Starbucks. These are huh?
Time is in the rough.
This is a good, you know what I mean? It's like this guy, a friend of mine, somebody once told him, he says, I feel like the thing that really like traumatized him, that really bothered him once when he was a little kid, he was walking with his mother. And they went into the grocery store. His mother was holding his hand, and somehow he lost his mother's hand, and he put up his hand, and another woman like took his hand. He didn't realize, and he looked up, and it was really another woman. And then his mother saw, and his mother was laughing. My friend said, I am so happy that this is your trauma. Right? Baruch Hashem, you have been traumatized from this. This is a lovely trauma to have. Right? So when you actually think about it, if I think about it in my life, okay, we've all been traumatized. I say everybody has to go through a good trauma, right? Everyone, because if you don't go through trauma, you're not going to like wake up. Jung actually says, those of you who know those psychology, Jung says there's no birth of consciousness except through pain, which is true, because if you have no pain,
I don't know if that's true. I don't like that.
Well, maybe I think of the younger generation might be different, but definitely in my generation, there's no birth of consciousness, meaning people were like in your own zone and reality. Okay.
What about simcha? Because also, like,
Yes,
if you're
that's-
constantly worried about survival and everything, there's no
Yeah.
place for simcha. You're always stressed.
Yeah.
And then there can't be proper consciousness.
Right. True. So everything they say in Chassidus, there's no such thing as spakus. There's no questions. Why? You learn the Chai, Eitz Hadas and Eitz Hatov, right? Why? Because there's a line in Yiddish, Sevenzich Bumeret. It depends where we're talking about. So it's like with Chassidus, it's like you can say, wow, Atzilus is a world of absolute light. Then you can say Atzilus is a world of absolute darkness. It depends. Relative to the world under it or relative to the world over it. You know what I mean? So it's like we have to like just, I mean, obviously what I'm saying is not 100% true because it just depends on one context. I'm just trying to bring out one point. But what you're saying is obviously 100% true, which is, the highest consciousness is the consciousness of joy. But there is a certain truth to the fact that if nothing breaks a person's reality, then they're stuck in that reality. And so therefore they're, I mean, it's not what you wish on anybody, but therefore they can become very petty. You look at a group, right? A whole their politics in the group and this and that. So certainly if you come from Crown Heights or whatever, and then you're out of it. You're like, what is that? You know what I mean? Or even a household dynamic and the father and the mother and the da. It's all a whole dynamic going on. And then, I don't know, you just move to the next town. And sometimes it's amazing. Like you could be in a city and there's all this stuff going on. And there's a mayor, there's a rotten mayor. And then you just like take a little vacation. You're like, that whole thing, what, where was I? Does it like, it's just totally different world, So the main point is not really the main focus that I'm trying to focus on. The main focus that I'm trying to say is that basically we have different levels to ourself. We have the lower self, which is important because, without the ego, for many years I was like very, not that I'm that smart, but it was kind of very against the ego. Wow, the ego, and the whole Eastern philosophy is all about against the ego. But then I came to realize, no, you actually have to have an ego. The Rebbe actually says that the essence of a person is their ego. Without an ego, nobody exists, even animals, even malachim, right? The ego is kind of the independent sense that you exist. If you didn't have that sense that you exist, the self, there would be no self, right?
But what about the sense of self that comes from the neshama?
So that's a good question. I mean, do you know how to access that sense?
I mean, people meditate and they do all kinds of stuff like
right.
accessing alternative states of consciousness.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what the class is about, which is accessing that part of ourselves. So yeah, I mean, yeah, no. Yeah.
Where is that sense of self coming from if everything is God? What that basically there is
that's a
nothing
great
that's
question. Where is that sense of self actually? How did that happen? It's a fascinating question. How do we actually gain a sense of ourselves? I don't know. I have a theory about it, but I haven't seen it. And I don't necessarily want to say a theory that I have without like really feeling that it's the MS. If anybody knows how that happens, but it's a fascinating thing that happens. You have a sense of that?
You're asking me, I'll gladly answer that question.
Can I turn the camera on you?
I'm not scared.
Okay.
I was yesterday on the camera.
Well, you'll be today also.
Oh, okay. Thank you. A person needs actually to go to a very, very deep level, pnimiut, internally to connect, like to connect to the seed within themselves and understand that this is coming totally 1,000,000% from a Kadosh Baruch Hu, totally. From the Kadosh Baruch Hu, it's 1,000,000%, okay? Giving birth to 2 of my kids with special blocks. Hashem wanted them in this world, no matter what I did, because I got pregnant also very late in life as well. But this neshamot, and those are my angels, by the way, and I'm so clear that Hashem, 100, this is my experience. So in order for you to connect and understand the core of that creation, of the love of mother and father, and for our seed to develop, it's totally 1,000,000% Hashem. It's Hashem.
It's all Hashem.
But this is the core. I mean, I had this experience. I mean, experiencing me being in my mother's room. I mean, I did some stuff that it's out of the box. I did a very deep, very hardcore, like, classes and more physical rope, like doing where I went to a trance where I experienced my birth. But in order to get to this type of a level, you just need the bitachon and emunah in Hashem. I know we get scared from the physical. We hear the sirens, we hear the bomb, we hear this and that. But Hashem is actually doing it to make us stronger, to be more resilient. I did not move out of the house yesterday, and today a phone call got me out, and your class got me out. But it's all a facade. It's just a cover up. It's not really the core. Whatever happens, there is no bad incident. Even if it looks to us that it's the worst thing ever happened, but it's always for our best. In the bad, when we see the bad, but there is a benefit. If I lost all my money, Hashem put me here. If I would have my money, I would not be here.
Right, how does that answer the question though? Meaning
I'll answer the question.
Okay.
It's a separate, but it's a beautiful thing that you're saying. What you're sharing is very beautiful.
Because
Yeah.
it's Hashem, זה בדרך השם. מה שהשם רוצה, the way Hashem wants, where he wants this neshama, and I have a purpose. I have shlichut here. Everything he invested in me, all the short life that he gave me, all this other knowledge that he gave me is not for me. It belongs to Hashem, and I need to share it. And in order for people to benefit as much as I did. But when I'm surrounded with people like you, it reminds me, because people's weakest point we forget. So we need to be in Torah, Shurim. We need to be surrounded with Yiddishkeit. We need to be surrounded close to Hashem. We need to study. We need to talk to him. We need to do all these things in order to remember the higher self, as the rabbi was talking about. This is to connect. We're connecting to our higher selves when we're surrounded in this environment. And that's a must, because we get silly. We're by ourselves, our brain is talking, and this is talking, and we listen to the news, and a lot of schmutz gets in, a lot of none. But in order to remember who is really in charge, and no matter what happens, we need to know that this is the best that he wants for every one of us. He wants for us more than we want for ourselves. This is my experience in this lifetime. So I don't know if I answer your
That's
question.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful words.
Yeah.
What you said it much better than I could, and I speak well.
Thank you. So you were the diving board,
There you go.
and I jumped to the pool.
It's very beautiful what you said.
Thank you.
It's very beautiful, and
Thank
also
you.
we honor your experiences
Thank
and
you
your
so
mother,
much,
and
Robert.
it's really
Thank
that's
you.
amazing. It's
Thank
amazing.
you.
Good for
Yeah.
you.
A
Hashem
lot
should
of
bless
work.
you. Yeah, it must be a
10
lot
years, 10 years of work. Yeah,
Yeah.
I did a lot of work. Yeah.
of work. Hashem should bless you.
Thank you.
What's your name?
My name is Solche, which
Solche.
means sun.
Yeah,
Ziva means
yeah,
the sunlight
yeah,
rays.
yeah.
And this is my two grandmas' names.
Socha Ziva. And what's your
Socha-
mom's name?
What?
Ma Hashem Shalima.
Aima Blanca Papo. She's a descendant of Peleoet.
Oh wow.
She's-
Oh wow. Beautiful.
And I'm a Gershon from my father's side. So
Wow. Beautiful. Okay,
you.
so
thank you.
I think I'm not going to go too much into the philosophy of your question now, because it's more the philosophical
Did I
realm.
answer you though?
You answered a lot of other things. It's like,
But this is the core. Your
it
question.
is, it is the core. It's very much it is the core. But so what's me?
The question was, how does a person develop their sense of themselves? Because we're all from Hashem, like you said. But the question is what is the mechanism that a person actually? So I'll say very briefly what I think. I think the psychological mechanism is basically that the body, it's a very, very deep concept, has a sense of pain and pleasure, right? So if I do that, I feel it, right? So who's feeling it? I am feeling this. So there are two separate things here. There's there's a soul that's feeling the experience. So the more I have experiences in life, the more I believe that I exist. So if you have a very powerful experience, you have a very strong sense of yourself. That's why, by the way, it's very important, very, very critical for people to develop ego. Because unfortunately, children that were left in Romanian orphanages, there are studies that they had these under Soviet rule and very, very basically they didn't even care. My friend that came from Ukraine that was under Soviet rule, his mother was told by the teachers, don't bring your kid to school. What the teachers were doing, they would open the windows in the middle of the winter so the kids should get sick. So then they wouldn't come to school. So the teachers would have a day off. It's a lot of selfishness, but real selfishness. Not to say all people are like that, but so people had a job. They had to do their job, but they didn't necessarily love it. So these kids, they were fed, but they were never hugged. They were never loved. Even here in Israel, you can volunteer to just hold orphans. People need the touch. Somebody told me, I don't know if this is true, but children that are not touched won't survive. People need touch. It's true.
I had that too. That they did מחקרים, studies, and some babies in orphanages in the 50s, 60s, some of them they gave them love, and some didn't give them any love at all, just technical, and they died. They didn't survive.
Right. So it's very, very interesting. So what happens is that,
it's you say you don't follow it immediately, but what you said is very heavy.
Yeah, when you actually think about the meaning of that, the importance of love, and then how important we're all to each other.
When you give someone love, you give him life.
Wow, love is life. Wow.
Love is life.
Wow,
we cannot go there. We are all here going thirsty for love.
Yeah.
Yesterday there was here a
One
man,
second,
80
Tanya,
years
I
old.
have to put the microphone because people are watching, so I need people to hear.
Go immediately. This is the thing, very deep. You know how many people? I also bring a picture of me.
Yeah, well, people are listening, so if they're listening, they have to see you.
Hi.
Otherwise, this is the beautiful Tanya.
Hello. So a lot of people are starving for love.
Yeah.
They are going like dead people, and I see them even. First I see them a lot in the Merkaz, and they don't know exactly what's missing in their life. They are so sad and they are so confused. And here we learn first of all to love ourselves, to understand that Hashem loves us. The Torah that He gave us is a very big gift. And by the Torah, learning the Torah, we can understand that we are love, Bamash, and we can give others love. This is amazing. This is the main thing that we are Machie Metim Mamash. We are bringing life again. And life, I feel that life is getting exciting from, it's getting exciting from minute to minute. I came up back from the Merkaz, and here, and I came for a missile attack, and then on Shabbat and Yom Rishon, but still it doesn't matter. We are Shofaro Shel Mashiach. We are bringing, how we said today, we are having a village here, like a community of love, and this is important. This is life. And this is the higher self,
Lovely.
I think everything is love.
You want to say? Okay, go ahead.
I think everything is love because it says Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. So Echad זה אהבה, אז הכל Hashem, והשם הוא אהבה, אז הכל אהבה. Everything is love.
We have to love Him very much.
Because
It's in
not
our
what we do.
parasha,
Everything
in
is
Ekev.
Hashem. This is Hashem.
Right.
This is Hashem. And this is love. This is love. This is love. This is love. Everything's love.
Wow, that's amazing. I never thought about that. So Ronnie just said that Shema Yisrael, that God is Echad, one. One is 13. The Gematria, the numerical value of 13 is actually love. Wow, that's very, very profound.
And Echad and Ahad are together.
Echad, wow.
There was a guy here that said, you are brainwashed.
Yeah.
And okay, we are brainwashed with love, we have some cool love.
We're drowning in love.
Wow. That's beautiful. Brainwash with love. Yeah, that's great. We'll take all the brainwashing that we
Yes.
can get. It's good. No problem. Yeah, I have a book called The English Tanya, and basically this guy wrote a review on Amazon. So he says, I started looking at this book and I thought this was brainwashing. Then I realized this is washing my brain.
Wow.
So
Yesterday,
you said that yesterday?
yesterday I said that when I came from a very big journey,
Yeah,
and then when the rabbi started talking with me from Kfar Chabad,
yeah.
he said, "You're brainwashing me," and he said, "Yes, I'm washing all the dirt. I'm washing your brain now, and all the dirt is going out." And it's like he's washing with love. It's getting higher and higher from day to day.
That's beautiful. And that's really what Hashem does, is he like puts us in the garbage and all the crazy ideas. Then he just like a parent, he starts to wash this, wash that, and he starts to polish. And then in a diamond, I don't know if you know this, but a diamond, you can always make another facet. Everybody knows there's like 24 carats in a diamond. They're 24 carats in a diamond. So we have somebody tuning in all the way from Bogota, Colombia. So the 24 carats in a diamond, but really, why am I saying 24 carats? 24 carat diamond, but basically you can cut a diamond. Now they have machines, like laser machines. You can always make it more beautiful, more beautiful. So the Rebbe says a very, very, very profound idea, which is that the world goes through 3 stages. Stage number 1 is it goes from chumnius, like evil, to decent. Chumnius to gashmius. Like a diamond, it goes, I've been in diamond mines, and like, actually this was a gold mine. But if even a diamond, when you look at it in the rough, it's like ugly, it's like a ugly, like whatever, it doesn't even look like a crystal. And gold also, it's like just like a little black
It's
thing.
black. I've
Yeah.
been in a gold mine in South Africa
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
And then there's fool's gold that what looks shiny and it's really worth nothing.
What do you mean? But when you break it open, it's gold.
I'm not
Maybe up
exactly
to you,
sure
boil
how
it,
they
and
put it
stuff,
through.
but in
Yeah.
the rock, it's just like a black.
Yeah, it's actually just black.
Yeah.
And so the story is that, so you take it from being something like that's really not nice, and then you make it into something which is, let's say, the diamond, and then you whatever, you cut it out of where it is. It's usually in carbon. It's like in coal. It's not easy to crush a ton of coal just to get the diamond, and then you polish it. So that's the world goes through.
That gold has to be there in the first place.
True.
That potential.
Yeah, yeah.
The tough.
It's true. Yeah.
From Hashem.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very good point that you're saying. So the essence, the goodness is really there in the first place, but it doesn't seem so. So the first 2,000 years are the 2,000 years, what we call, of chaos, right? The world was chaos. It was like humorous. It was very dark. But then Shem basically starts the process of civilization, right? You get the 2,000 years of Torah. You have Avram Avinu, and then you have the Torah. So now you're getting the process of refining. It's very interesting because the Chayvus Lubavitch, who's buried here, he says something fascinating about the Torah. He says the Torah is actually just the middle of the way. You would say the Torah is, wow, the highest level. It's not the highest level. He says the middle of the way. He says, look, in a sense, I'm not sure if these are his exact words, but I think it's a concept. But like, look at the 10 Commandments. Don't kill, don't steal. It's not exactly the highest levels. Obviously, they're highest levels in the Torah, but the point is that the Torah is not Chassidus, which is like, I give your life over for another Jew that you never met. It's more like the basic difference between the highest level and the lowest level. It's like the civilization itself, decency. And then, because the next 2,000 years are called the 2,000 years of Geula, then you're taking the diamond that you already took out of the ground, and now you're polishing the diamond. But the thing is, with a diamond, you could always make it more beautiful. You can always polish it more, which is why Chassidus, in fact, is infinite. Right? All the levels of Torah, Pshat, Remez, Drush, Site, there are 600,000 interpretations on every single verse based on 600,000 souls. In fact, it's the only thing I saw the Rebbe say that I have no idea how a human.
I don't know what love is. Like
we love you. Everybody love Nissim?
We've got to
you're
show
a beautiful
you what love
person.
is.
It's a mitzvah,
if you love yourself, then you can love others. So we got to start. I know a person in the community that she had a very, very difficult life, and she said, I got to get out of this. She thought, like, what loves me without any conditions? And she realized Hashem. And then as she was able to realize that Hashem loves her with any conditions, because sometimes we come from societies where maybe even our parents, they came from parents that didn't necessarily love them unconditionally. Because when people are healthy, like a child, they love unconditionally. Children don't need, around you're speaking about special needs children, that's where you're going to get the most love in this world. Because they're not sophisticated. They don't have an ability to go after the Ferrari. So they're like the pure essence of goodness and truth is within them. I did this thing. I used to go around New York in different places, and we did this kind of like we went to like Hanukkah and Purim. We'd visit places, and the place that I felt the most love was like the Jewish special needs home in New York. And I don't think they understood a word of what I was saying, but the amount of love, if I actually think about it now, the amount of love that I felt for those kids, and that's one of the reasons maybe Hashem puts them into our world, is to see real love.
They have very high neshamot. They're really in this world on a different domain altogether. They can see through things. We're so full of it. We're so full of it that they are totally on a different domain. The children with special needs, they have, I believe, my experience with raising some kids with some challenges, they have a straight conduit with Hashem, totally. They look maybe that they're disabled or something, but they're very powerful and they are operating on totally different level. What I wanted to add about love and hugging and kissing, I need to remind you guys that our parents or my parents, they're Holocaust survivors. I don't think they got hugged, and they did not hug me either. But when we're talking about polishing the diamond, polishing the gold, we need to work on ourselves. If we're missing certain care, certain affection, we could just rebuild it. Whatever our parents did not give us, we cannot blame them because they're coming, as the Rav is saying, they had also a pair of parents in difficult, there was First World War, there was Second World War. There were no time for a lot of, I think, affection. There were, especially the Jewish people from Spain that we got, were always thinking how to survive and to think about giving affection and care. We need kind of to adapt, forgive, and let go, and rebuild whatever we think that we're missing in order to become in that level where you're totally beaming, Tanya. And that's beautiful. You're in a very, very happy and high level, which is a beautiful sparks you're sending us. And that's beautiful. Thank you.
It's beautiful. Okay, so getting back to the idea, let's remember. Right. So
Torah's love too.
Yeah. So the story is that okay, so we're talking about ourselves, right? The different parts in us. So number one, we have an ego part, and I was describing what builds the ego, what I think builds the ego, which is more of a philosophical thing, so it's not as important in this conversation, but it's like the more experiences you have, and sometimes ironically intense experiences, so you feel yourself intensely, and it's brought down something very interesting, is you can only feel someone else if you feel yourself, right? So ironically, if you feel yourself too much, that can be a problem. But if you feel yourself too little, it can also be a problem. So you have to have a sense of self, huh?
Oh, could I?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, because I think ego is a sense of fear. I feel
That's
like it's
interesting.
like
Yeah.
pressure and fear. I
Yeah.
Because I think the experiences themselves, like I
Yeah.
don't know if the experiences themselves do it, like because even what you're talking about in terms of pain and pleasure, and
Yeah.
like people who are actually traumatized,
Yeah.
they can't be. A lot of them can't feel like pain and pleasure, even like physical
Right.
pain. Like they're disconnected from their bodies.
Yeah.
So I think it's a matter of like
Yeah.
what you're, and partially what you're allowing yourself to feel, but it's also I
Yeah.
feel like it's the fear of not surviving. That's what I feel like.
That-
May I interrupt and even say, like, do you think, like, well, do you think even, like, because some of, like, in Torah, like, a lot of leaders that we, of the Jewish people that we've had, they actually rebuked the nations, you know, also in the, like, all throughout Tanakh, in Torah and the Nevi'im, like, they were rebuking the nation because they, out of love, right? Because they wanted the nation to stay on the straight path. They, right, like, they, in my view, you know, they cared about the future of the nation, and they saw what would happen if they strayed too far, and they did, and they got tortured because of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Especially
One second.
Ermiao.
Let's focus on the class here, because I don't want to go too far afield. There's like a main point that I want to bring out.
Yeah, not
The
all of
ego
them,
So-
like some of them.
So
Some
yeah.
of the symptoms of trauma is that they disconnect. from-
Okay, so everything, all the
Parents also-
things that you guys are saying have a lot of value, but I'm just gonna get back to the main focus,
Okay.
because basically try to like just take a point that I'm trying to bring out. Okay, but afterwards we can go into the details of it. So the bottom line is this, right? What is this class about? The class is about accessing our higher self. So in order to access our higher self, we have to know we have a lower self and we have the higher self. And in a certain sense, we have to be able to disconnect our identity from our lower self. Because basically, the way a person is, even an animal, is that we assume that the body, because it's actually good that you brought this up, because how do I know I exist, right? Because the person that knows I exist is really the mind, right? The greater the mind, I'm sure if you're an amoeba, your ability to even be conscious of yourself doesn't exist. You know, kind of like on some level, you know, you exist, or your pain pleasures is functioning. But like, does a mosquito know that it exists? Probably not. It might have this connection between its soul and its body, meaning I'm getting hungry. So it kind of on like a subconscious level know it exists. But the higher the consciousness, the higher the wisdom, the more you can objectively understand that you exist. Like we can think about thinking, right? We can think about ourselves. We can. So now we have a situation that we also begin to identify with the self that we think we are. And that's a very important point. In other words, I think that I am this person that is thinking, right? I think I am this body that is feeling. So that's the identification with the body. That's why a little child wants more, right? They'll say mine and me. And again, like I said, the difference between children and adults may not be that different. Hopefully, we've matured a lot. And what we're really thinking about is higher things. They say little people speak about little things, you know, a little bit more. They speak about people, and higher people speak about ideas,
Or
right?
better, like the kid might be saying, I want better.
Right. So the point is that we actually, when we're young, we have this desire, let's say, for more. The kid sees a toy, he wants the toy, this and that. So, in other words, what is he identifying with? He's identifying with the body, with the desires of the body as being himself, which is why what is loss? Loss is when the body loses something. So take away, let's say a child has one toy, God forbid.
Yeah, but so what?
And 1 second, I'm in the middle of talking, so you have to wait, and then when we finish, then you can ask a question, we can discuss. So you have a child, and you take away the toy of the child. So what will happen? The child's whole life will fall apart because that's what he has. I mean, and again, with an adult, if I identify with my Ferrari and I love my Ferrari, you take away my Ferrari, I'll feel sad. Took away my Ferrari. So, in a certain sense, love can be connected to self, and things that the self has, and loss and pain can be connected to the lack, something that I lose, which is really how people feel, God forbid, grief and loss, because it's something that you loved. It kind of goes hand in hand. The more you love, the more, God forbid, you'll feel loss over the lack of it. And that's healthy, right? Because there has to be some kind of structure going on there. There has to be some kind of reality functioning. But that's not necessarily our highest self. And this is the problem with the secular society. Secular society is going to say that is you. So whatever you want, you should do. And nobody should tell you what to do, because it's like making an idol out of your own lower self, an idol out of your desires. Right, and that's why, like, kind of the Roman thing, we came, we saw, we conquered. It's all about success. What is success? More ego, right? Mm-hmm. What is loss? A little, less, you were demoted, right? So, as you were saying, there was something to the older generation, like my grandparents. I remember my grandparents are very special people. They came from Russia, a lot of difficulty. They came to Cleveland, the rabbi and Rebbetzin there. They really built up a community. They did a lot. Eventually, they moved to New York. And then from New York, they came back to Cleveland. Whatever, there was like a gathering and honoring them. So they wanted one of the grandchildren to speak. So I thought about speaking, and I even made a speech. I didn't speak, but the speech I made, and the vart that I wanted to say, which is a very important vart, is that the thing that represented both of them was convictions. They were led by their convictions. And that's very, very important. Convictions is a very important word. Why? Because what I desire, again, can be attached to the body. Oh, convictions. convictions.
הוצאה לפועל. הוצאה לפועל. את מדברת עברית?
אני מדברת עברית.
אוקיי. conviction זה מתי שיש לך למעשה רעיון להוציא את זה לפועל. יש לך את ההתחייבות. לא, יותר חזק. התחייבות. שיש לך התחייבות. קמה בבוקר ואת אומרת, אוקיי, בום.
הרשאה.
conviction.
conviction זה הרשאה.
איך?
הרשאה. בעין, להרשיע, to blame someone?
לא, אוקיי. יש הרבה, סליחה, טניה, אני מדברת אלייך. conviction יש לו הרבה פירושים, אבל כשאנחנו בבית משפט ואנחנו אומרים conviction זה לבית משפט שייך, אבל הוא מדבר על שאת נותנת לעצמך מטרה לעשות משהו ואת מוציאה את זה לפועל. זאת אומרת, את לוקחת את זה כמו בחיים ומוות אני עושה את זה, זהו זה, conviction, זה מאוד חזק. את מבינה שאת עושה החלטה לעשות את זה.
רצון השם, like must be, it has to be.
הבנתי, תודה.
הוצאה לפועל זה.
It's also, וגם זה, תודה, וגם זה, convictions is also, how do you say, זה המסר שלך. It's your, yeah, like your dot. In other words,
עיקרון.
Yeah. So the point is that a person can have no convictions, like, oh, whatever I want, I'm going to do. Or they have convictions, which is, like you're saying, I have to do this. Like, for example, for a Jew, they say a funny joke that an anti-Semite comes to a Jew, and he takes out a big knife. It's going to kill him. He says, listen, I have to make a bracha. So what's a bracha? He says, Al Kiddush Hashem. So he says, okay, whatever, you can make a bracha. What's the difference? He says, Baruch atah, it's the last bracha. Al Kiddush Hashem. And he's so impressed. He says, oh, don't worry. But he says, no. So only a Yid can get that. So the point is that's like what a Yid with Yiddishkeit is convictions, right? And I want to say something very deep, by the way. So it says there's a sefer called Reishis Chachma. If you're familiar with Reishis Chachma, if you're familiar with Reishis Chachma is a very special sefer. It was written by Rav Chaim Vidash, study the sefer. And basically what he did is he created a Shulchan Aruch out of Kabbalah. And in other words, everything it says in Kabbalah, there's a lot of like Gemara, there's a lot of philosophy, but all the practical things. So it's a very, very special sefer. Before people came to Alter Rebbe to study, they had to know the sefer by heart. It's very special. Now, he says there's something very interesting. He says the Baal Tshuva, and some of us around the table were Baal Tshuva. Now, there are different levels of Baal Tshuva. There's a level of Baal Tshuva that you didn't know anything, and then you learned, and that's wonderful. It's the highest level. But some of us, myself included, we were brought up religious, and then we were a Choser B'Shelah, and then we were a Choser B'Tshuva, right? So again, it's very wonderful. It's the highest level, Baal Tshuva, Makom Baal Tshuva. But there's something that can happen in the process that's very important to get back. By nature, a person has Yirat Hashem. There's an innate Yirat Hashem in all people. Even a child, especially a child, there's a sense of the greatness of Hashem. Even a secular child, there's a honor and a humility before Hashem. So when you throw off that yoke, then, or imagine a child that becomes rebellious, and he says to his parents, "You go your way, I'm going my way," and you come back to the house. Okay, I decide to love my parents. Okay, you love them, but you still have reverence for them. You still fear them or honor them. And so it's important to reclaim. It's true Hashem wants mainly love. The Rebbe says in our generation, Hashem made it that we come to God out of love. But we have to reclaim our Yiras Hashem as well. Very important. Now, the main thing that I'd like to bring out here is how do we access our higher self? So we have, and it's very important to understand this, we have an innate sense that I am my lower self. And in a certain sense, subconsciously, we'll always see ourselves as the lower self. And it's important. Why? Because if we were all our infinite higher selves, I wouldn't be anything but Hashem. You wouldn't be anything but Hashem. There would be nobody in this world. We would all just literally be Hashem. And Hashem created a world, as I heard from Rabbi Yossi Jacobson, or as I read from Yossi Jacobson, it says, Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. One of the ideas of Shema is Echad, that the one is in the many. So why did Hashem, the one God, make many? If you were, you could do anything, would you make a whole bunch of manys? And the answer is that there's something better to manys than one. Even the best bachelor is still a bachelor. But if you have two people, as the women say, better two than one, okay? No marriage is perfect. You're never going to find the Mr. Perfect. It ain't going to happen. I'm sorry. And I like to say I'm an expert on marriage. I've been married twice, and I'm not perfect both times, right? It ain't going to happen. But I can promise you this. Marriage is a lot better than being single, right? Even the most imperfect day in marriage is better than the most perfect day not being married, because we were built, Ashtain is a lane, we were built for love, we were built for unity. So this world, when you actually think about what Hashem has done, which is take his essence and put it into a person or a thing that sees itself as a separate entity, our basic function, and then we begin to go up higher and realize, no, actually, this essence is, like you're saying before, really the divine essence. And the divine essence is within my essence. And therefore, we're all really one. But there has to be both. There has to be the lower self that can understand the higher self. Because if the lower self didn't understand the higher self, there would be nothing but the higher. There would be not many. There could not be love.
Wait. So the higher. Oh.
I can give an example.
One second. Let's go around because the three people wanted to speak, and Ronnie we're going to go around like this. Yes, sure. I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah, go for it.
What actually are we? Like in like what part of God? Okay, we're part of God, because like in my seeing, like that would help me like understand what my relationship with God is. Like, what am I in relation to him? Because in my view, I didn't fact check it anywhere, but like Torah is like God's mind.
Yeah.
And Shabbos is like the rest and like the satisfaction of God.
Right.
So even these things that have like they're a different entity, but they're like there's something in relation to God. So what are we?
Right. Okay, one question. What are we in relation to God? What is God basically? How are we? What is the God part of us? What level of God?
Like?
question is the level or the relationship?
Well, if I would know what I am, then I would know like where I'm standing, like in biyachas
Right.
to
Right.
Hashem, and then what I need to do to get where I want to get.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. Okay.
Okay, isn't there a separate sense of self in terms of the higher self also?
Right.
Because
right. Yes.
because
Good
like
point.
the neshama, like each neshama sees the Torah differently. Because we're
Yeah.
talking about like the
Yes,
600,000
good
ways
point.
of interpreting the
Good
Torah.
point.
So my question is like, I mean, the ego, from what I understand, is associated with the lower self.
Mm-hmm.
So then, but then, I mean, and the higher self definitely is not a barrier between you and Hashem. But unless you say that we're not even our higher self either, we're just
Right. Right. Okay. Good point. We'll discuss that. So the second question is, because basically we have a soul, and the soul itself has a self, and that soul has definitely a consciousness. The essence of the godly soul is basically that it understands that it's part of Hashem. Very interestingly, the Alter Rebbe once said to a chassid, said to him, "What is Hashem?" So he wasn't going to tell the Alter Rebbe what Hashem is. And he said, "What is a yid?" He wasn't going to tell the Alter Rebbe what a yid is. So Alter Rebbe said, "A Hashem is hu levade hu ve'ein zulasi. It's the only reality, and a yid is somebody that understands that." So the neshama really is the one that really understands, because we're all born into a world, a physical time-space dimension with objects, including our own body, which is an object. So we objectify the world. We see it as being a entity. But the higher you go in the higher worlds, the more the world is like see-through. And you realize it's all Hashem, right? That's really the whole thing here. Yeah.
Right. I have a
Can
question
I-
on that because if you
I get my turn.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's.
Are you
Yeah,
gonna
please.
do second serving? Let me do the first serving,
Okay. Yeah. Go for it.
if that's okay
Yeah,
with
yeah, go for
everyone.
go ahead.
I don't want to overreach.
No, it's okay.
So I have a very good example of
Yeah.
the subject.
Yeah.
If we take for an example the sons of Aaron, a Cohen,
Yeah.
they wanted all spiritual. Hashem created down here too, the physical, and the balance of doing the combination. It's Hashem's way. They wanted their own way. I'm giving only an example that they wanted only to be spiritual and up there. They were not married, or whatever they were doing, they did not connect physically down here. Or one of the classes that I studied or that I got. So if I understand the rabbi, that what he wants or what is discussed here and your questions, I think it's a balance of connecting the physical with the spiritual in balance. To be all there, we have the example of the sons of Aaron a Cohen. Correct me if I'm wrong.
So what's the goal?
What is what? I love your questions. I love it. Tell me.
What's the goal?
The goal is balance. You need to have what the rabbi is saying. He's talking about the ego, he's talking about the physicality, to be here now, to touch or to be physical. He's talking about actually the balancing. Yeah, to be spiritual is very important, but not to forget to connect in the here and now. And Rabbi, just a minute.
Yeah.
I mean, Rabbi, I forgot his name. He's called the Angel. He has a whole series of books, Chabad. Yeah. He's talking about Lechiot im Hazman, to live in our times, and he has all the parashot, but he's naming his series of books to live in our time. My Saba Rabba 200 years ago says we don't have the kilim to live like Avraham Avinu, like our fathers. So we need to be intelligently understanding our own balance between Ruchaniyut and Gashmiut.
But isn't ego something different than Gashmiut though? I mean, that's my.
That's for
Yeah.
him. That's for
So,
you, the
okay.
rabbi, to take the platform.
Yeah, you get. I asked many questions.
No, you're very good.
Thank
Maybe
you.
I'm
You're
going
very good.
somewhere off or backwards or something. But no, I think I heard in a Jewish space that ego is good because fear sometimes can keep you safe. It's if it's in balance, and you should also kind of like yourself and want to preserve yourself and protect yourself. You should want to survive. Whereas Buddhism almost says to sacrifice your survival instinct. And Judaism doesn't have that message.
Yeah, it's true.
And also, Judaism isn't saying, like, oh, don't interact with the world at all, it's evil, which is a part of the ego concept, saying
Yeah.
that your concept of self is evil,
Right.
or that the concept of reality is evil. So it's just, it's almost against Judaism to be hyper focused on ego.
Right.
'Cause
Right.
you exist.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right.
And it's good.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, I think like the way you like understand what ego means, because ego isn't good or bad. It just exists. You know.
Right. I mean, you can have an unhealthy concept of self or something, but that's different between being like, kill your sense of self. It's like, what do you mean? Because they don't just mean kill your sense of self. They also mean don't interact with the world. Sit and meditate all day.
No, I think they say the desire is bad.
No, but the goal of Buddhism and
Right. So then they take that to don't interact with the world because
that's
Mm.
their
Yeah.
ultimate state.
Right. Right. So effectively, I think all the answers to the question boils down to this one thing, which is this. Like you're mentioning about Buddhism, one of the things of Buddhism is to get rid of your desires. Why? Because they say your desires are going to make you unhappy. So ultimately, what is the goal? The goal is to be happy. And so
What is the goal again?
their goal is to be happy. And so some people are happy, they'll say be happy through, I don't know, serve whatever, and you'll have a good head. Other people say be happy, I don't know, do whatever in the world and whatever, get a good degree, get a lot of money. In other words, they're all saying the same thing in a different way, which is this is a mechanism of being happy, right? Because the body wants to be happy. But the truest sense of the self is really the concept of convictions. Why? Because even the nefesh elokis, even the godly soul, and this kind of answers your question, even the godly soul in a way is not the essence. It's not Hashem himself. Or the godly soul basically comes from the world of Atzilus. It's born in Atzilus. And therefore, Atzilus is Etzlei v'samach, it's close to Hashem. So its consciousness is the knowledge. What makes an angel an angel? Is an angel really better than me? Well, he's better maybe in behavior, and he's always good and not always good. But really what makes him an angel is his consciousness is aware that his existence comes from Hashem at all times. So if I knew every moment that I am coming from Hashem this second, would I actually disobey my very sense of self, my essence, right? Yeah.
Right, but then why would that be the goal then? Because we're not supposed to be angels. So why would like knowing that we are Hashem would be the goal? Because then the achdus wouldn't be happening because there wouldn't be two that are one. There would only be one.
Okay, one second. Let me go through the whole thing.
So I didn't get your question. Is that okay if I ask you?
Yeah, sure.
What is your question again? Can you articulate?
So my understanding of the answer that was till now is that the goal is to understand that we are one with Hashem. We're one. And then that negates, that kind of makes the whole idea of unity of two becoming one disappear because there aren't two, there's one.
Okay.
And the angels are one with God. So my question is, why should we want to get to that consciousness of we being one with God? And then we'll just be like angels, and obviously we're humans for a reason.
Can I try to answer?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, because there's two separate stages. There's Ritzo and then there's Shov, which means like Ritzo is you're running towards Hashem. That's like you're indistinguishable from Hashem. Then Shov is like then you separate. So then you become your individual self and you do Hashem's will in this world. But there's two separate stages because they're both true.
Yeah, there's a lot of truth to what you're saying. It's very, very deep what you're saying, because I want to finish with one thing, and then I'll go back. Yeah, what do you want to say?
You want to say something?
Oh, yeah.
It's okay.
Go for it. Yeah. We want to hear from you.
So, fun thing is the term ego is used in a lot of ways, but it has root in psychodynamic thought, psychoanalytic thought, mainly Freud. It's the difference between, it's basically in between the id and the superego. So, in psychoanalytic thought, the id is what we would call sort of like the animalistic self, the constant desire to have whatever it wants in that moment. And the superego is the sort of hypercritical, always criticizing part. So it's basically balancing between do whatever you want and have nothing of what you want. The ego is sort of like the in between. It's what mainly where our consciousness lies, and it's supposed to be a bridge between its middle path, and it can lean towards either way. But our tendency to say like ego is sort of used in a way that is maybe not entirely what it was meant to originally. When we say ego nowadays, we usually mean like an inflated ego, or a like over reliance on the self. But
No, but Buddhism literally says the whole thing.
yeah. Buddhism is pretty clear in that, what is it? Desire, suffering, and to achieve true bliss, not even happiness, because happiness is its own thing. But achieve bliss, that you have to just nullify all your desires, and to that you have to castigate your own body. It's tricky. You've seen priests, they shave their hair, they all wear uniform robes. It's not great. However, my understanding of psychology is that the ego specifically is not an inherently evil or bad thing. Neither are the id or the superego. It's all experience, right? Our entire humanity, at least the lower soul, is entirely defined by our consciousness and experience. So that it's really fluid in that sense, and that what can be really hurtful to one person is completely different to the other because of their past experiences. And the ego is a really powerful thing that we shouldn't want to completely nullify or completely rely on, but it's a good mainstay of the human experience overall.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. They say that Freud looked, it's a Hasidic teaching, very deep teaching, that Freud looked in the ground and he found worms. Had he looked deeper, he would have found water. So that's really the whole concept that we're saying here, which is that behind the id is the yid, right? Behind maybe the animal soul is the godly soul. And now, okay, so just to get into a couple of definitions and concepts, and so it's actually quite simple, but you just have to kind of pull it apart, and then you realize what it is. So, without going into too many of the different aspects of the ego in this, but we have the animal soul, right? The animal soul is like the ego and the desires and the body and the pain and the pleasure, and in fact, many good things, qualities that we have, love and joy and compassion, and that's kind of the self. Whether you like it or not, that's what you've been born into. That's what you've become conscious of, or subconsciously has made you. And that is your, so to say, your identity, right? Or your personality, however that's developed. That's kind of the you. Now, what we're trying to do is not get stuck in that. We're trying to allow ourselves, because there's another part of ourselves. The other part of ourselves is, first of all, we have a godly soul. And like you said, the godly soul is actually not God himself, right? It says, Chamisha Shem V'Snikru Lo. The soul is 5 levels. Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chai, Yechida. But we say the soul is called 5 levels. It means the soul itself is not even Yechida, which one with Hashem. That is not the essence of the soul. That is the name of the soul. So the highest level itself, the Nefesh Elikis, is not the real essence of the soul. So what is the real essence of the soul? The real essence of the soul is Hashem himself. And Hashem doesn't have, in a way, an essence. Because if you say something has an essence, We're already defining it that it has an essence and it has an expression, a body and a soul. Hashem is reality. There is no other reality but Hashem. So on that level, your body is just as much Hashem as your soul. And maybe even your body is a higher level of godliness as your soul. I heard this from the Rebbe. That the body itself, where the essence of Hashem is kind of expressed, that the Yesh HaNivro is the Yesh HaAmiti, is Hu Levadehu Ve'ein Zu Laseh, is higher than the world of Atzilus. It's a crazy thing to think about, that your body is higher than the world of Atzilus. Because the world of Atzilus, for those that understand a little bit of these Kabbalistic ideas, the world of Atzilus high is Giluyim, is already revelation. So there's a consciousness, right? Every universe is a time, space, soul dimension. There's this neshama, the consciousness observing the reality. So it may be a very, very high world and observing something very high, but there's still an observer observing an observation. So there's already two things going on here. But the real essence is mamish, what the Baal Shem Tov saw. And what did the Baal Shem Tov really bring to the world? He brought the unconditional value of a person, unconditional value of you. Right? He says that a Talmud Chacham, like there's some places, oh, you're a Talmud Chacham, you're good. You're not a Talmud Chacham, you're not good. That's like a little bit like ego, which is idolatry. No, you are good. Right? The essence of every Jew, hopefully every person, is good. Right? A child's nature is sweet. Children are good. We were speaking before. The people that the least sophisticated you are, like the special needs children that have no sophistication, they can't grab on, their egos can't say, oh, I'm going to be a professor. He's never going to be a professor. He's never going to be a doctor. Thank God he can walk and he can talk. That person, and that's part of the sweetness of the child, is he doesn't have these other desires because he's like just kind of in a way stuck in his humble space. So that reveals the essence of Hashem, the essence, the simplicity, the core, just ourselves without any of the masks, without any of the titles, without any of the things that we put on, which, as you were saying, many times ego is really fear, because what we're doing is we're actually presenting to ourselves. Actually went through this stage. So it was very interesting because I grew up very, very pure, thank God. Maybe like ADD, so maybe a lot ADD. And so I never bought into the whole structure of ego. And it's like, I was like kind of very just idealistic for many, many years. And I'm not saying that I didn't have ego, but I never bought into like, oh, I'm going to be this. I mean, I was like, brought up with very good parents, like very based on like ideals, right? And I got married and I became a rabbi. And then I really encountered some really weird behavior. And so then sometimes you have to like react to it, and then your ego gets broken, and now you have to have an ego. But the reason I'm saying this is that I was able to notice some of my self-defenses taking place in real time. So many of these self-defenses take place before the person's conscious of the self-defense. But thank God I was able to be conscious of that. It doesn't mean, it's a very interesting thing, just because you're aware of the self-defense that you made doesn't mean you can actually get rid of it. It's very, very difficult to get rid of these self-defenses. They're very much become. One of the things that I noticed is that I kind of developed this kind of, it was just a protective mechanism, like the ego, like just being bigger than yourself in order to function. It really was like a protection. But before you know it, you can't distinguish between the mask that you made and the person that you are, right? So you go around the world, and many people go around the world outside of the simplicity of themselves. Because if nothing was making you afraid, now, it's not always that you should be simple, right? Part of life is actually being strong. So chesed is very sweet, but actually gvura might be, as my wife says, gvura might be a higher truth than chesed, because gvura might be actually doing the good that the chesed wants to do. So chesed could be more like the ratzei, like this desire, but the gvura, like you go to the person, is an interesting thing. There's no such thing as good without evil and evil without good. The very people that can be, God forbid, evil can also be the very best people in this world. You know, the people like Schindler, for example. He wasn't a holy person, but he saved many lives. But he took his wildness and he was able to go against an entire government, an entire system, saving hundreds of lives. The other person may be very sweet, much sweeter than Schindler, much less whatever sins. But at the same time, he doesn't have the inner resources. And that's why in Judaism we say there's a difference, very interesting, between two personalities. You have what's called a sheep and an ox. A sheep personality, it's like a sheep. A sheep wanders, they'll look chocolate. And then, I'm a sheepish. And then you have another personality, like I'm a friend, a strong person, and he gets into fights. But meanwhile, this person gives him a lot more charity, a lot more, financially successful, but that doesn't matter. He's spiritually and in the world much more successful than other people. So the ox personality, his temper is bigger, but also his fire is bigger. And if you bring that fire into the right location, then that fire is very powerful. It can do tremendous things. And so this is already but anyway, so I just want to sum it all up. In summary, we all have a couple of things. We all have the body, we have the animal soul, we have the ego, and we have the consciousness, and we have the desires, and we have to have that, right? But at the same time, if we make an idol out of that, I am, and especially as a person becomes defensive and then they make a real, like it's very sad to see societies and cultures that are all about the ego, right? And somewhat in the West, I think after Obama, who's totally like narcissistic. So the society itself becomes a lot more narcissistic. Everybody's kind of faking it for everybody else. A healthy society is, we could all be ourselves, right? But that happens in many societies, right? So, but then you go a little bit higher, and then you say everybody also has a godly soul. And the godly soul is this kind of just passion for Hashem. It says that every night the neshama cries to Hashem, and it says, get me out of here. Begs Hashem, get me out of here. And in fact, once, I don't know exactly, it was like a dream or something, I actually heard that cry. And I can tell you it's a cry like you never heard a cry before. It's like a cry. It's a serious cry. I think I read an article recently about the silent cries of the hostages. We can't imagine what these people are going through. And it reminded me also what the Rebbe says, that there's the silent cry. The Rebbe says sometimes it's not so silent because you and I may not hear the cry, but maybe many of us have gone through it, the cry of the soul experiencing the prison of an empty life. And that's our job. We're here to save souls, to find a Jew and say, here, take the Tanya, take the this, take the that. We have to be seeding it. The Baal Shem Tov says the three kinds of souls that come into the world. Yardei Ayamba and Niyos Oisam Lachab Mayim Rabim. Some souls come down into the madness, to the ocean of craziness of the world in a ship. Baruch Hashem, you look, I love looking at Hasidim. They're so like, their lives are so, it's like they're mentally healthy, they're physically healthy. I don't know physically, but basically physically healthy, psychologically healthy, and spiritually, everything's beautiful. They're in this ship. Like you look at them, their communities are structured in a ship. But then there are lifeguards, right? If a Lubavitcher, for example, is a lifeguard, our souls, and that's the ideal situation. You're not in the madness, but you're a lifeguard. You're saving the souls in the madness. So you have to remember, if you get out and you get into the ship of Torah mitzvahs, don't forget the people that are still in the ocean. That's a very important mission. And that dedication to the Rebbe, to the mission, brings out our humility. Because spirituality itself can also be selfish. But the dedication, and this is one of the points I'm trying to bring out, which is the conviction. The Rebbe says something very, very deep. We all have a conscience. The conscience in your conscience, right, against the conscience, whatever, S-C-E-I-E-N-C-E, your conscience, meaning your convictions, within your mind, that is Hashem. In fact, there's a mitzvah that a Gentile,
There is a book called The Silent Cry. I just checked.
Cool.
Did you see it?
No.
I will check what's the book about.
Cool.
The
So-
Silent Cry.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
You want to hear your
It's like
sentence?
also your
Yeah, the
Yeah,
conscience.
you've heard of Hashem's Rebbe.
of
and like that.
yeah. So we're saying that the goyim have a mitzvah, which is to do anything good that they think. It's very interesting. Part of the seven Noahide laws are not so simple. They're not necessarily seven. Could also be. I actually wrote a book called God's Ethics. Everything that it says between Adam lechaveri, between man and man, I think according to the Maral, those mitzvahs apply to them. 7 turns into 40. A whole bunch of things. But one of the things is that anything good you think you should do, you should do. In other words, follow your conscience. And so this is a very important thing because our conscience, and often, ironically, as religious Jews, we sometimes are at a disadvantage because we're so busy following the Torah and mitzvahs that we let go of our own conscience. Like that person needs help now. Remember, I saw this. It was very embarrassing to me, but I was in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, and I saw it was an older Jew, and he was like having trouble across the street. And sometimes, like, I don't know, in New York and religious communities, everybody's so busy doing their thing. And there was a nice black young man that came and he helped him across the street. I thought, why didn't I do that? You know? So sometimes you can be so religious that you're letting go of the religion, of your conscience, of your chesed, right? Because that's the innate part of us. That's the simple, the child. You know, you look at a baby, they always look at you in the eye, right? They level with you. They see you as a person. Even a cat, you look at the cats, you know, they're looking like, because they don't have this ego protection. They have a certain, you're an, I don't know if you're a human, but you're a creation. You're a thing. Even my little, not so much, but my, even like an animal with a consciousness, even a dog, they're like, they see you as a person, right? They're not looking past you. They're looking at you. And so this is a very fundamental fact of a human being, that you're human and everybody else is human too. And so when you understand this, and this is the sensitivity, the compassion within us, this is the God within us, and there's no separation at that level. So at that level, you are being Hashem in this world. You are actively, and it's almost like Hashem and you are the same thing over here. Take care, Michelle. No problem. Thanks for coming. So, okay, so that's that. Let me just ask if there's any questions. We have different audiences here. Any questions from any of our other online audiences? No questions. Okay, great. Any questions from any of our in-person audience?
No, I really like the whole thing about the convictions.
Yeah.
The convictions are directly from Hashem.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah, very powerful concept. The Rebbe, the Rebbe is very, I mean, who am I to say, but the Rebbe is very amazing because he was very, like, if you want to call it, on one hand, simple, on the other hand, scientific. In other words, he was really able to, like, say, okay, that part of you is Hashem. He's like, everything had its place and its structure. It was very, like, factual. This is what it is. And if I may say, one of the things that I like about the Rebbe very much is that if you're looking for the truth, the Rebbe is very objective truth. Okay, this is the emes, and this is how it goes. And so, a lot of rabbis may be very fluffy and they're trying to inspire you, but of course the Rebbe wants you to do good, but all within the context. And you see this in the Baal Shem Tov as well, and you see it the context, you see it in Tanya as well, a context of truth. It's not just like, oh, do this and then you're going to get a big piece of fish in Gan Eden.
Right.
It's like there's you and there's your challenges and then there's your mission and then there's this part of that. And this is, so.
It was a genius, but I wanted to say something.
Yeah.
After you.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. When you were giving the example of the chesed and the gvura.
Yeah.
I'm a widow, alav shalom, and my husband, alav shalom, he had both. And it took me 30 years to understand that he's a genius.
Wow.
And I think the rabbi has the same, that the chesed And the Gvura, it was really a mixture of both. And it was very successful. It was very famous. I mean, the Rebbe, my husband, and I think you could have both in like measure balance of both the chesed and the gvura together in one person. And I mean, beyond the sky's the limit, like to the high achievements that these people to their servicing, to their shlichut in this world, what they contribute is just phenomenal beyond words.
What did your husband do?
He ended up, I married him as a diamond polisher here in Israel. We ended up living most of our lives in the United States, and he became one of the biggest developers in Los Angeles.
Really?
Every other street is one of his
Really?
buildings and stuff that the developer, a
Wow.
very well-known developer.
Oh wow, that's something.
Yeah, thank
Do
you.
you know about developments? Is that something you know about?
I also was in development. I had my own little company, and my husband was really the backbone. Of course, he
Yeah.
supported myself and the partner that I had,
Yeah.
and I also constructed for 40 years.
Oh,
I
really?
did very difficult sub projects.
Wow.
Yeah, very
Oh, interesting.
challenging.
Or maybe we'll talk because I have a goal. The Rebbe says we have to build up the whole Eretz Yisrael.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll talk.
I also built
Yeah.
here
Oh,
a
you
little
did?
bit.
Oh, nice.
I
Oh,
did.
beautiful. Oh, good.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay. Anytime.
Thank you.
I don't know. I need the program of the classes here
Yeah.
so I could participate.
I'll
I love
send
it. How can I get it?
I'll let me just finish and then I'll send it to you.
You
okay?
said, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll give you my
Yeah.
contact. Okay.
Right.
Thank
So okay. Beautiful.
I
Wow.
love what you guys
This
do.
is a very
Yeah, all of you. So nice.
yeah.
And you too.
Yeah.
And you too.
Thank
And you too.
So, okay, let's do a little meditation. Hashem should grant that this meditation should help us see what it is that because really when I came up with the idea for this class, I thought that there are really two main points. One point is identifying with Hashem, and the other point is expressing Hashem. And so this is really important, these 2 points. And also, I just wanted to, we really didn't do justice. We've done many classes on it, but what Rifki said is very important. We were kind of speaking about it, Chesed and Gvura. The way we get the Chesed and Gvura is like you have to sometimes in davening, take your time, daven, and connect to Hashem. And then in the life, you have to say, okay, I'm on a mission. So that's going back and forth, going into the spirituality, but then going out of the spirituality into the darkness. So it's like a candle. You go in, you get yourself lit. So or like a car, you go, or like an electric car, you plug yourself in, and then you go driving. And that's the whole thing. And that's something that the Rebbe gave us, the idea that we're on a mission. The soul is in this world to make the world a better place. Okay, so let's do a little meditation. Take a deep breath. And close your eyes, not if you're driving, please. And breathe in Hashem. Let go of all your stresses. Hezbollah just blew up, Baruch Hashem. And all the enemies, the evil people in Gaza, they just their bodies just fell apart. And in Iran, they just, the flood waters took over, the evil ones, wherever they are. There's nothing to fear. There's only one reality in this world, which is Hashem. Breathe in deeply, that everything is just Hashem. It's only light. Imagine the whole universe is light, including your own body. We're all light. And now, let's go through ourselves from level to level and see who we are and why we are. On the lowest level, on the basic level, let's not call it low, on the basic level, we are a creation of Hashem, as everything in this world is. Whether you're a dog, a tree, a cat, a rock, you're a creation of Hashem. And you, my body, you're a creation of Hashem. And your essence is really Hashem, but you can't see that. And so the next level is the consciousness of the individual, how I feel about myself. And I feel that I am important. My desires are important. What I want is important. My honor is important. I am important. And again, you have to have a certain self-love. It's important to have that self-love. But let's go a little bit higher. I'm not only my body, I'm also my beautiful heart, my sense of love, the people I love, my sense of my people, loving everyone. Even like the Baal Shem Tov, loving everything. The Baal Shem Tov loved animals and trees and plants. There are many beautiful, sensitive people in this world that just love. They love unconditionally. And going even higher, I have a mind. And my mind has Hashem, it has God in it. And what is God? God is convictions. God is right from wrong. God is the sense that this must happen. This is right, and God controls the body. The mind controls the body. The mind tells the body how to behave. The mind says, this is how you have to do things. And then now I'm two people. I'm a God mind, and I'm a little bit like an animal body. And the two, like a master and a dog, have a conflict. The dog just wants to run after every cat and every bone and pish, on every tree. And the owner is like, I'm going for a walk. We got a plan. So the body doesn't have a plan. The body just has instincts and desires, and some of them are good, but it doesn't have a plan. It's just like how I feel right now. But the mind understands that things have to be a little bit more controlled. There's right, there's wrong. So there's a war between the mind, the God mind, and the body. And we have to have this war. You can never let go of this war. Because if you don't have your animal body, you're not here. And if you don't have your God mind, you're nowhere. You have to put the two of these things together. And the beautiful thing about life is like a horse and its rider. Again, the horse just wants to go anywhere. The rider knows where he needs to go. The more you ride, the better you get. And you know something? The horse can take you places that the mind can never take you. The body can get you. The body can hug. The mind can't hug. The body can work hard. The mind can't work that hard. The body can do things the mind can't do. And so therefore, it's the combination of the two of these things that allows God himself to exist in this world. Because your essence is God's essence. And in his great, tremendous humility, he lowers himself into us so the two of us, which is one, can experience the glory of life. L'chaim v'levracha.
Amen.